listening to you speak, and I'm seeing it from the other perspective, where it's someone who was maybe in an injury or passed away from a death, and where they're giving. And I'm listening to you speak, where you're talking for the individual who needs an organ, where there's a whole process that's involved. And it is not as simple as here's $100,000 cash and I want that heart or kidney, but there is a process that's involved.
It is a process, and when you are in need of an organ, you put yourself on the list, and we say you put yourself on the list in the proximity of where you live. So if you lived in New York, you put yourself on the list in New York, probably New Jersey and Connecticut. But you can put yourself on the list in every state, but you have to be able to get to that organ when it becomes available. Sometimes you may hear about people receiving a transplant, like someone like Mickey Mantle, but what you don't know is that they may have received their organ from, Oklahoma, where the lists are a lot shorter. Therefore, it looks as if they got their transplant quicker, but it's because they weren't on a list in New York. They were a list in another state where they were not as highly populated as New York City.
Right. So the key is to, get on as many lists throughout the country, and that would improve your chances.
Well, I would say that that's a little difficult, because if you wanted to put yourself on a list in Florida and the organ is available at 3 o'clock in the morning on a Tuesday, you have to be able to get to that organ when it becomes available. So that's why you need to put yourself on the list in the proximity to where you live. But, unfortunately, areas like New York State are very highly populated, and therefore the lists are longer, or California, the lists are longer, but in smaller states, the lists are not as long.
Is there an age limit for donating?
There is no age limit for being able to be a donor. We've actually had donors that were in their 90s. As I said, it's based on the health of that donor, and sometimes someone, who are in their 60s or their 70s may actually be healthier than some people that are younger. So it's really about the health of that donor. We test each person that consents to donation to see exactly which organs are viable, and then we're able to proceed with the transplant process. So it's based on the health of the donor. That's really the key and important part.
Wow, that's pretty exciting. I just had a thought. Let's say I had a patient of mine that would like to be an organ donor. Does the patient come to me, and do I do the screening, or do you have doctors that throughout the city of New York where you would go there and do a thorough history and physical and do the screening there?
Are you talking about living donation, or is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, let's say a patient wanted to donate a kidney because there was a need, like a family member or something like that.
I would say the first thing they want to do is get an overall physical. So I would say to go to you, Dr. O, to get an overall physical, just to see, if they can even possibly be a donor, because I think an important part, and they always evaluate that if you want to be a donor while you're living, is you can give one kidney, you can live with one healthy kidney, and some people, if you wanted to donate to a child, you can take a piece of your liver or a lobe of your liver to donate. Is we don't want to endanger the donor's health, so we want to make sure that the donor is healthy enough to be able to donate. I say get an overall physical with your primary care physician like you, but they really need to go to the transplant center, and there's many of those that are in New York City, and then proceed with the process at the transplant center to set themselves up to be able to donate. I think that would be a good second step after they got the overall physical from you.
Okay, great. So there you have it. So if you're thinking about being a live donor, and you need a thorough history and physical, and I always say before every year you need a thorough history and physical, please come in and see me or go to your physician. It's important for a comprehensive workup, regardless if you're going to be a donor, but if you would like to be a live donor, especially for a family member, it is imperative that you have a history and physical with comprehensive labs, and then we would take it from there. Well, this is wonderful news. It's important because this is something that we really don't talk about. You don't hear it. It's not in the media. Physicians like myself, we don't talk about it. I really don't know much about it because this is something we don't cover in residency. And if it's something that's not covered in residency, we just don't talk about it.
I mean, there's a separate team that handles it specifically for transplantation. I mean, you probably wouldn't hear about it unless you've been touched by donation. I mean, my background and my experience really proves that 100%. You know, if I hadn't been touched by donation, I had no one in my family that was ever in need, no one was ever a donor. Because I had a real life experience where we discussed it, I realized I didn't know enough information, and I went and did my research. But most people, unfortunately, don't hear about it unless they've been touched. I say it's not always a sexy subject, but it's an important subject for people to know.
Right. It's as a family physician, that's something we don't cover. I think probably if you were a trauma surgeon along those lines, they would learn more about the donation, especially with the organs, because they're dealing with surgical procedures and they want to preserve organs. I'm looking to preserve lives, they're looking to preserve organs. It's a little different discipline.
I mean, and it really follows suit, you know, when the transplant process does occur and the donor does consent or their family consents in the hospital, it's a separate team that handles transplantation. You know, sometimes people are concerned, you know, I really want to be an organ donor when I pass away, I want to put it on my license, but I'm concerned that medical care may be compromised or the doctors won't take as much care because they know I want to be a donor. I always say you don't have to worry about it because the hospital team, the staff that's there, does everything they can to save your life. That's their goal. The team that handles transplantation only comes into play after you've passed away, and it's a separate team altogether. So as you said, really your goal is to save lives, and our goal is really to leave a legacy or to help save lives additionally.
Right. I can see where there's concern. How are they going to treat me after I pass? But you are still held to the highest standards. Like as a physician, if I was a trauma physician where I was on the donor team, I am still held to gold standards, and that means I will treat you, or these physicians will treat you with the utmost respect, so you will be taken care of and treated as if you were alive. So if that's a fear that you will think that something will happen to you after, that's not the case. You will be held to the highest standards. That's important because it's scary even with me as a physician and saying, wow, do I do this? How am I going to be treated? Something going to happen to me? Are they just going to gut me and get that organ? No, you are held to the same standards. They're going to dissect you out with care. It's very important because there is a quality of care, and you still are important to the community even after you pass.
I mean, you're 100% right. We really prepare the body even after the transplantation. The donor's body is prepared with the respect and dignity that it deserves, and then we send it on to the funeral home for any of those burial arrangements. You can even have an open casket funeral. I know that's something that's a concern for a lot of people, but the body is prepared with the respect and dignity that it deserves. So exactly what the doctor said, 100%.
Absolutely. The body's a temple and will be treated as such.
Yes.
Even in the anatomy lab, we have families that donate the bodies, their family members, because we have to learn. Even in the anatomy lab, we are held to a standard. That's at medical student first year, first class, and that's the first thing we're taught. You must respect the body because the body's the person. Remember, we have the mind, body, and spirit connection. That's how it even applies in medicine. This is something Bishop Paquette and myself, we always discuss. We always say we're the God's God, where you have the spiritual healer, and I would be the minister of medicine. This is where we make that connection. There's still a connection there. Very important. We maintain that connection, we maintain the respect and the dignity. It's very important. So if you're thinking about donating an organ, and this is a fear, please take part and donate, because there should be no fears, because we just explained that you're going to be held with the utmost respect. Well,
I agree.
this is
You're right.
Exciting. I know. It's a topic that a lot of people just don't want to discuss, and even in the medical field we don't discuss it, and it's new to me. I mean, I've always known about it, but again, like I said, in residency it's not discussed. We don't talk about it because my job is to preserve life, and I don't see after. So this is something that I even need to know about, and I will encourage my patients to be a part of this as well as my family members.
I think it's wonderful. Thank you so much.
I want to thank the Bishop and Church Live Community Church for allowing me to have the Ask Dr. Tommy O show. Remember, stay live with Church Alive. Make a difference in our community. Volunteer, make that commitment. And here's a gift that you can give. Become an organ donor. You have the information on the screen. If you don't have that information, or we can easily give you that information, call Church Life Community Church, X for Bishop Burkett, and say, I would like to be an organ donor. Thank you. God bless.